Over the last few years working with brands and being in that branding kind of sector, um, the one thing that really sort of makes me feel sort of confused, even to this day, right, 2020, is how bad um, certain sectors are in terms of their branding, in terms of their look and feel, and the status quo, right? So there are many different sectors that I could talk about, but today in this video, I'll just talk about the medical slash clinic doctors kind of market segment. And if you go on Google and just do a simple search for medical logos or clinics or doctors, you would find brands that are terrible in the sense of how they look, right? I'm not talking about the brands themselves. I'm talking about their brand identities, their logos, their visual communication, their websites. It is really baffling. I mean, it's why, right? I mean, okay, I understand it's a conservative kind of market segment. It's not business in the traditional sense, in the capitalistic sense, but is it? I mean, the medical clinical sector is the most profit-driven sector on the planet. Make no mistake about it, right? I mean, doctors, of course, yeah, they are God-given, right? They are God-sent in the sense that they treat us, they help people, appease pain, they save lives, right? So that's not what I'm talking about. But I'm talking about the industry sector. Clinics are expensive. Private clinics are expensive. Medicines are expensive. Medical situations are expensive. Anything to do with the medical sector is expensive, right? And top surgeons and plastic surgeons, pediatricians, dentists, ophthalmologists, you take any branch, the top people in that segment make a lot of money. Now, this is not a complaint against the medical profession or doctors, not at all. In fact, it's the opposite. And I say, why does the medical kind of sector have to have this kind of really low-end kind of branding when it actually represents a sector that is so great, right? That is my question. And in this video, we will look at a few examples, and also we will try and work out the best ways to brand your medical slash clinic or healthcare brand. Let's start by looking at a few examples. Now, I just searched for plastic surgeon logos in Los Angeles. Right now, in Los Angeles, plastic surgeons are rock stars. They are celebrities. They are at the top of the economic chain. And yet, look at these logos, right? I mean, you might say, well, there's nothing wrong with them. If they're working, why are you complaining? I'm not complaining just because I'm a brand specialist, but I'm really complaining because of the potential, right? Okay, Marina Med Spa. Okay, they've got a shell going. But look at the design elements that are being used. American Society of Plastic Surgeons, right? What is this? What are these two shapes? Is that like a face or is that a globe? What are we to understand? What is it representing? Okay, this one, CARA, Plastic Surgery Laser Center, CR. Okay, CR is what? CARA. Okay, facial focus cosmetic surgery. Okay, I see the F and F. That's okay, that's good. F and F, the facial focus, that's being reflected. But the kid is, I mean, why have that symbol in the middle, right? I mean, using caduceus symbols is for a plastic surgeon. Come on. Okay, let's take a look at this. Barrett plastic surgery. Okay, it's got a feminine kind of line art, not bad. Leaves, okay. Are they eco-friendly? Is that what they're trying to say? Not really sure. Okay, Los Angeles Society of Plastic Surgeons, LASPS. Again, what is this? Circles. Okay, Sunset Cosmetic Surgery. Yeah, of course, the name is Sunset, so therefore, you know, you need to have a sun in it. By the way, I might even have an issue with the name itself, Sunset Cosmetic Surgery. What are you saying? That, you know, usually you're probably looking for uptrend in terms of a brand, right? So this is something like you're getting plastic surgery because you want to look better, maybe, or it could be, of course, rectifying issues. But I would have thought that that would be considered as an improvement, as a new day, so sunset. I don't get it, right? So naming also in terms of the medical practices and the clinics and so on and so forth. There's also an issue with naming. So naming, brand identities, visual language, and so on and so forth. So let's look at a few more examples, and then we will go on to trying to figure out how to build a perfect kind of medical practice or clinic kind of brand identity. And then you have things like this Pope plastic surgery. Again, I mean, okay, they don't have an icon, which is okay. Typography, that's excusable. Wave plastic surgery, okay. Are those scalpels that I see? Wave, yeah, I can see some kind of wave look in the W and the V. But then the E, are those scalpels? Maybe they are scalpels, not sure at all. And then Sol Lahijani, S and L. Okay, this is a personal brand, so he's trying to use the initials. Okay, that could be forgivable. So what is the underlying tone of all these examples? Now I know they're just a few examples. I'm sorry. I could have, you know, sort of put together a slide with lots and lots of examples, but I just want to demonstrate just a few. I'm not saying these are terrible, but I'm just trying to show you the state of, and that's just plastic surgery, right? We could look at different sectors and, you know, different medical branches, and you will see the same pattern. So what is the underlying kind of current that you see with all these identities, with all these brands? It is that differentiation is really is missing, right? So differentiation is missing, and differentiation is critical, especially in the medical practice and in clinics and so on and so forth. So why is differentiation so important? Because, I mean, if you think about it, virtually all practices retain the services of board-certified physicians, right? So it's like the majority of physicians working at clinics are, at the very least, competent. So how do you differentiate your practice? How do you differentiate your service as opposed to others? Of course, word of mouth, that is, you know, reliance on referrals, is just about saying that you're resting on your laurels. But proactive brand building, you know, that is the way to go, because especially as we move into the future, medical practices, I think as AI steps in, robotics, all these things are going to give you a run for your money. And in this kind of market segment, in this kind of noisy landscape, the brands that look great, that communicate the right message, that differentiate themselves, those are going to win in the long term, in the short term, and in the long term. So how do you differentiate your medical brand, right? First, embrace modern technology. Now, of course, we're just talking about at a brand level, okay? This is not about visuals. We will come to the visuals in just a moment. But first of all, of course, embrace modern technology, right? What this means is technology not for helping your patients, or treating them. That, of course, is your business. There's nothing that I can say about it. I'm no expert in that. But I'm an expert in branding. And branding is not just about the visual. This is about the touch points. It's the experience. So this is about, is your website modern, right? Are you using email properly? Are you using social media properly? Focusing on customer service. Are you really interacting with your customers, not just at the front desk, but online, through Twitter maybe, through social media, and so on and so forth, right? So this is about working with patients and not just on them. So you need to really sort of work out a positioning or brand strategy to work with your patients in terms of when they're away from your clinic or practice. So this is about keeping in touch. This is about creating a persona. This is about aligning with the worldview of your patients. Okay, they come to you when they're ill, or when they have an issue that needs a physician or an expert, a surgeon maybe. But beyond that, you need to really, okay, you're treating them, that's fantastic, that's what they need. But as a brand, you need to really form a bond beyond the work that you do. Because lots of times people go to medical practices and they don't really have the best of experience. In terms of experience, not results, but in terms of how they're being treated, in terms of what the brand means to them. Maybe they love the physician, the nurses that help them, or deal with them, the front desk receptionist, or the way they were able to book an appointment on the phone, maybe, the way they were able to sort of go through the whole process of visiting, aftercare. All these things are touch points, and all these things have to be a part of the strategy. You need to come up with a positioning that is not just about making sure it's great, but it's also about how are we doing better than our competitors, right? If another clinic or medical practice pops up in the neighborhood, how are we going to retain our clients, our customers? As simple as that, because patients are customers, patients are your clients, right? So now coming to, those are just the general kind of branding principles, right? It's the mindset that you need to have. Next, we just go specific, and we started, of course, this video looking at some logos. So let's just look at that, because this is a very broad topic, and I don't want to really talk about the positioning strategies themselves. Maybe that's a separate video that I can do. But right now, and your logo is very important. I'm not saying that it has to be the most beautiful. It's not about beauty. It's about differentiation, right? It's about creating that intentional public perception. Now, here are a few examples that I wanted to just, show you. Okay, these may not be spectacular, but they are about communicating a difference. Look at this, Buffalo Ridge, the iconic buffalo. Now, people might say, okay, medical center, so what has a buffalo to do with medical center, right? But what the client is trying to do here is really bring that kind of, the positioning is all about the location, right? So they want to own the mind space of that location, that geographic location. And having this buffalo, this bison, as kind of an iconic element, they can tie it in. KAD Medical Supplies. Very simple typographic, but it's got this encapsulating like a pill. So simple and very straightforward. Great Lakes, these are the lakes that are being represented. Sun rising about the lakes. Atlantic Spinal Care, very straightforward icon, spine. California pediatric care, a fun kind of an image with, you know, a mother holding a baby. So it's about these two, maybe nurses are helping her, so on and so forth. Fowl trover, infant children and adolescents, right? So you got kids playing, and there's an abstract tree. Now those could be balloons or balls that the kids are playing with, but it's also a tree. Again, pediatric foot care of Oklahoma. Okay, pretty straightforward. It's just a foot. Golden State also. Midlothian chiropractic. Okay, this is a little different, right? Instead of showing the usual kind of symbols for chiropractic care, here you have a figure running, right? Jogging. And then there's these waves that represent speed, elegance, smoothness, moving. Now, OrthoPro, supporting your recovery. So here, it's leaves, yes, it's a flower, yes, but it's also the horizon. If you look at the angle of that globe and the sun rising, right? So the gray part on the right side is the sun rising, and then the green represents, of course, the recovery. Then you have Spine Clinic, Valencia, against the spine showed there. H3 Biomedicine, the world, green, sustainability, so on. And there's a hidden tree in that icon. Oxford Private Medical Practice, it's of course these two, they're very straightforward in the plus sign for medical, A plus, very simple. Okay, so as I said, these are not really the most spectacular examples, but just a few of why it's you gotta make sure that your logo is on the spot. Just make sure that you don't use generic icons. Now you could use them, yeah, they might look nice here. These are just some clip art kind of images. But what happens is that as more and more people use from the same source, you're going to have issues of recognition, right? So, for example, some of the most overused design elements, a globe. In the example that I showed you, there was a globe, but it was very abstract, right? The V-man, the graph, the meaningless kind of just the word mark, so to speak. When you're working with a logo designer or a brand agency, just make sure that you don't tell them that you want to see something related to the medical field. Or if they ask you, do you want to see something related to the medical field, say, no, we don't have anything specific in mind, but we want a creative logo. We want a logo that really communicates who we are. So it's about the essence of your medical practice or your clinic. It's not just about the fact that you are a medical practice, right? It's not just, that is fine. Maybe that's in your name, maybe a tagline, but it doesn't have to be necessarily in your logo. So just make sure, because when you're working with a graphic designer, when you're working with a logo designer or a brand agency, if you say that you want to see something related to the medical field, then the designer would have no choice but to look at the obvious cliched kind of design symbols. So you're really boxing them in and creating a little bit of a situation where they can't help but use and because right now, I mean, if you go online, you're going to see symbols that are, saturated, right? So medical symbols are saturated. So ask for a creative, something that breaks the mold, something that sets you apart. So that should be your kind of your emphasis with your branding agency. And have these 5 points in mind when you're approaching a logo. The target audience, your brand promise, your brand perception, your brand voice, and your brand values, right? Okay, they might seem like very abstract, but target audience, okay, this is fine. I mean, you probably know your target audience. There's not much to talk about. But look at your brand promise, okay? Usually, your brand promise could be that, yes, we give the best care, or, so on and so forth. But that is not enough. That is, you got to go deeper, and you got to work out how you want to be perceived, not just as giving the best care, but something beyond that, right? Something that aligns with the worldview of your target audience. And try to come up with a voice, a specific voice that can then be seen in your visual language, but also in your messaging, in your marketing, right? And your values. Now, your values are something that you would have to, of course, come up with, and they are set in stone. They should form a part of your kind of brand architecture, right? So those values should come out in your visual language. Now, I'm not saying that you need to overload your logo, your primary brand mark, but you could have maybe a secondary brand mark that also sort of continues the brand values and so on and so forth. Okay, so I know this video was all over the place, right? So I started talking about, or rather complaining about, the poor state of medical practice and clinic kind of branding and visuals. And I showed a few examples, not so great examples of bad, which I think are bad. And I don't mean any offense to those people those brands that I showed. They're on Google, and I'm just passing my opinion on those. And then I showed some examples of not so great, but at least they're different. And the key takeaway of this video is differentiation. So make sure that you're differentiating your brand through your logo. And that, I think, is fundamental. Now, in another video, maybe I will talk about other aspects of branding and messaging as related to medical practices. But for this video, that's all I have to say. And if you have any questions or concerns, and if you think that I missed anything about the medical practice in terms of brand identities and logos, please leave a comment below and I will get back to you. Till my next video, take care.